We've grown well over the last 6-7 years. But if you do want to meaningfully grow as a business, given the size of the market, you certainly need to look outside of Mauritius. And most Mauritian companies that are looking at geographic expansion typically do look at East and in some cases West Africa, Southern Africa. And it obviously depends on what you do as a business, but there's certainly opportunities for Mauritian companies to go into Africa and to invest into Africa.
Okay, time to ask for a Christmas favor. I'm away from my desk for the next 2 weeks, skiing in Switzerland, so I have to be honest, I'm not going to be missing you. But I'm also not going to be able to do the usual social media push as these next few episodes go out. So it would mean a huge amount to me and even more to the show if you could go onto LinkedIn, find and follow the How to Lend Money to Strangers page there, and then like, share, and even comment on the latest episode announcements. And I'm going to make it easy for you because this one's a goodie. For a couple of years, around 2005, 2006, I worked for Barclays Africa in a lovely little hand-picked team that had been tasked with modernizing the retail lending risk operations of the bank's various businesses around the continent, under the wing of the enigmatic Nick Geimer. We were all new, and so the first task was to divvy up the various markets. You get Zambia, I get Botswana. You get Ghana, I get Kenya. You get Mauritius? Wait a minute. I didn't know tropical islands were an option. In the end, I think it was Paul Maskey who was first to be sent there on a business trip, only to return saying that arriving at the airport alone and in a suit when everyone else was a loved-up couple in beach gear may not have been the prize we'd all first thought it was. Anyway, what I'm supposed to be saying is that while most people go to Mauritius as tourists, there is a thriving banking ecosystem there. Welcome to How to Lend Money to Strangers with Brendan Lagrange. Mark van Beuningen, CEO of the CIM Financial Services Group in Mauritius, welcome to the show. You and I both share the same excellent educational foundation, graduating in 2001 with a Bachelor of Business Science from UCT, and we both followed that up with some country hopping, albeit in different directions around the world. So before we talk about your life now on a tropical island, let's talk about how you got there. What was your professional background pre the CIM Group?
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. So post-graduating and with you in 2001 from UCT, I worked for KPMG in Cape Town, qualified as a chartered accountant. I then spent 5 years in Australia, first working for Macquarie Bank in Sydney. I was in their structured products division. I then did an MBA and joined the Boston Consulting Group in Sydney and spent just under 2 years there before moving across to Johannesburg and spending 4 years with BCG in Johannesburg. And I was one of the founding members of the Johannesburg office for BCG.
Yeah, so Mark, MBA and BCG is sort of gold star on the corporate CV, and then working in Johannesburg, which arguably the most corporate city in Africa. With that previous experience you had in Australia, as a neutral looking at your career path, they might have expected New York or London or Tokyo to be where you headed next. What took you to Mauritius?
I had a fantastic career at BCG and really loved BCG, but for anyone who's been in consulting, there's not much balance in the work-life balance equation. So I guess I made the choice, which my wife actually prompted me to make a choice between her or the company. So obviously prefer my wife. So I decided to look for something else and I looked at opportunities in Johannesburg. And I was actually born in Mauritius, so my mother's Mauritian. Spent my first 9-10 years of my life in Mauritius before moving to Zimbabwe. So my father's from Zimbabwe, but then came back to Mauritius every year. So I got lots of friends and family here. My wife is Mauritian, so all her family lives here. So I thought, let me just try out, see if there's any opportunities in Mauritius. It's a nice place to live. So I put my feelers out here and got an opportunity to work with CIM Financial Services, CIM Group. The job was MD of CIM Finance, which is our biggest business unit, with the opportunity to go up to Group CEO. and the board and shareholders wanted me to expand the business into Africa. So I think coming to a small island, obviously this lifestyle aspect of it, which was nice, but then there was opportunity for me to have a very big operational role as well, and to look at the African expansion, which excited me a lot.
Beyond the palm trees and the sandy beaches, what does the market actually look like in terms of financial services in Mauritius?
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. So I think from just starting on what Mauritius is before I jump into from a market perspective. Mauritius started pretty much as a sugar island. So sugarcane production was a big, the main economic activity for hundreds of years. But then it branched out into tourism, then into textiles. And I guess those three sectors are still very important, and tourism in particular. So like you said, we've got a population of about 1.3 million, and we get a similar number of tourists coming to Mauritius each year. So obviously beautiful beaches, but fantastic hotels as well in Mauritius. And the offshore sector has grown significantly in Mauritius. So I guess from a jurisdiction perspective, being able to build a reputation of being a very safe with, well-skilled people for companies that want to invest into predominantly Africa and India. So Mauritius has got a lot of double tax agreements with countries across the world. And we've done a great job of getting those in place for India and for Africa. So there's a huge amount of FDI that's flowed through Mauritius into Africa. And you get a lot of companies that are investing into Africa that set up their offshore operation head offices in Mauritius. And off the back of that, the banking sector has grown significantly. So I guess given the size of the island, the banking sector is very big, with quite a few big international banks in Mauritius as well as the local banks. And then real estate is a big part of the economy as well. So a lot of golf estates, villa estates, beachfront estates, where if foreigners come and buy into those estates, they get permanent residency here and then are able to take advantage of the tax rate of 15% that we enjoy in Mauritius. So obviously, off the back of real estate, construction is a huge part of the economy as well. And then business process outsourcing, so BPO, has taken off a lot as well. So it started off in call centers, but then has gone into IT services, software development, accounting, etc. So it's quite for a small island, a fairly well diversified economy. And also the one big benefit of Mauritius as a offshore sector as well as BPO is the language fluency of Mauritians. And French, I guess Creole, which is like the local pidgin French, if you want to call it that, is the main language. But then French is the most widely spoken language. But because was a British colony, the education system is British, so everyone speaks English fluently and writes English well as well. So you have people who can, from a call center or BPO perspective, you can service both English-speaking and French-speaking countries, which is very useful, obviously. And I guess from a per capita income perspective, Mauritius is a high-income country now. So if you look at from an African context, most of the countries are low or middle income. So even though we've got 1.3 million people, it's a relatively wealthy country, especially if you compare it to Africa.
When we look at that CIM Group, what are we talking about in terms of how's it structured, what businesses are in there? And also maybe how do you balance that pool or those dual pools of serving a Mauritian market and then serving the much bigger global market outside?
Mauritian companies have got a long way to go in terms of taking advantage of the opportunities outside of Mauritius. But certainly, given the size of the market, there has been good opportunity to grow, and we've grown well over the last 6-7 years as a business. But if you do want to meaningfully grow as a business, you certainly need to look outside of Mauritius. And most Mauritian companies that are looking at geographic expansion typically do look at East and in some cases West Africa, Southern Africa, and they're starting to gain a lot of traction. So I think obviously depends on what you do as a business, but there's certainly opportunities for Mauritian companies to go into Africa and to invest into Africa. From a CIM perspective, we're a lending business, so maybe a bit of context around who exactly CIM is. So we were a bit of a diversified mini conglomerate when I joined, but we've really focused on being a financial services business. We had an offshore management company, so I spoke about the offshore sector. We had the second largest offshore management company in Mauritius, and we sold that to private equity for about $95 million about 5 years ago. And then we had a property development business which we spun out and separately listed about 3 or 4 years ago. And now we're purely focused on financial services, and that's our core business called CIM Finance in Mauritius, which is really a consumer finance business. And that's hire purchase, which is a bit like micro leasing. So I guess for the lower income folks who want to buy TVs, furniture, mobile phones, we will give them credit to buy that, and they can pay us off in 2 to 4 years. We're the largest leasing company in Mauritius as well, so vehicle and equipment leasing. And we issue and acquire Visa and MasterCard. And we've got a factoring business. So it's a very good working capital solution for SMEs. So from, I guess, a market positioning, CIM Finance is really, like we service like the lower to mid-income sector of the population, which is typically underserved by the banks, as well as SMEs, which are also underserved by the banks. So quite a nice space to be in, and it's served us very well. And then from an investments perspective, we started in Kenya. So our two main businesses are consumer finance, being hire purchase and unsecured loans. We decided to go with hire purchase, and we built out retail partnerships there with, I guess, with all the big furniture and consumer electronic good mobile phone stores, and are giving credit to their customers. And our second largest business is leasing. And so next year we'll start doing leasing in Kenya as well.
Yeah, and I seeing on your LinkedIn, I think, update a press release on education loans in Kenya as well.
I guess from a Kenyan context, that was very much a market-specific demand. So doing something that supports your customers. I don't think it's going to necessarily make us a huge amount of money, but in Kenya, because the public school system has deteriorated significantly, the private school system is very big. So you've got about 2.6 million children at over 3,000 private schools in Kenya, which, if anyone knows Africa, I mean, that's pretty huge. In Kenya, they place a huge premium on education to get their kids better educated, better opportunities in life. But all the schools there require you to pay your term fees in advance, which people struggle with from a cash flow perspective. So it's really it's kind of like a buy now, pay later product. So we'll pay your school fees up front, and then you can pay us back over 3 to 4 months at a low interest rate.
I see the CIM Group was the first non-banking financial institution in sub-Saharan Africa to issue MasterCard and Visa credit cards, the first to issue China Union Pay cards, and like the last several years now, you've been investing very heavily in mobile-based lending platforms, like WhatsApp-enabled SME loans and things that wouldn't necessarily be expected in a smaller, more sort of far-flung market. So before we deep dive into any lending products, just in terms of the philosophy at the group, what is your innovation philosophy and what's been behind this big drive to digital?
I think I'd say it's more like a big drive has been around analytics and digital. So I think it's I really started in analytics when I first joined, and I think as you know, if you want to lend well, like strong analytics really helps you to make better credit decisions. So we already worked with Experian on scorecards, but we've built out a very strong analytics capability in the business. And I guess that goes from the data warehouse through to the front. I guess your dashboarding and all the analytical tools that you use. As well as like the actual people capability that we've built, and that's really helped us to be able to tweak us. Like we do some very deep analytical reviews on a monthly basis, and it's helped us to understand our loan portfolio performance at a very granular detail and be able to tweak our scorecards, very 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 quickly to respond to any credit risk, portfolio risk that we're seeing. And it's helped us, from a margin perspective, it's certainly helped us a hell of a lot to grow the business sustainably. But then from a digital perspective, a lot of it's around, I guess our focus has been on operational efficiency and then customer experience. So from an operational efficiency perspective, it's really around making sure that all back office type processes that were very manual in the past can be automated as much as possible. and up to and including processes that are, customer facing. So, like in our leasing business, for example, now we've partnered with a South African company called Ceriti, which is effectively it's like a loan origination system where you put the customer's details onto the system. It integrates into our systems, and we've got an automated workflow that helps us to get a very quick turnaround time on granting lease applications. All the way through to contract fulfillment. So from having to print out reams and reams of contracts, everything's all pretty much DocuSign or digitally enabled contracts. Like our consumer finance business is, like I said, our biggest business. We've got close to 300,000 clients. And that's out of an economically active population of 550,000 people in Mauritius. So we've got a very big customer base relative to the population here, close to 55-60% of the population. And we were printing out all their contracts, and now it's all like a link as SMS to them, and they sign off on a contract, and it's done very quickly. So that's and then from a customer facing perspective, we were, given the nature of our business, it was very people heavy. So, like I said, our hire purchase business, by definition, we granting credit on furniture, consumer electronic goods, mobile phones. So we had people in stores around the island, as well as 7 branches. So we've got people sitting in 110 stores around the island. And then you've got about 100,000 loans being generated a month. We've got 250,000 people paying us back in person every month. So it's just a huge volume of, loan origination, as well as monthly cash repayment for the installments. So we've been thinking through how can we optimize that to give people the choice of being able to originate a loan through a digital channel, or to be able to pay us back through a digital channel. And that's for obviously our existing customer base, but also with the realization that the younger demographic who pretty much spend their life on mobile phones expect that kind of customer experience. So we need to have some good digital platforms. And we built out a very nice, mobile app that helps customers to do exactly that.
If you think about, say, 5 years ago, what they might have looked like in terms of raising money in the factoring side, or just in the general credit side for an SME, to what it is like now in the digital world that you're providing them, what are we talking about in terms of difference in days to get a loan, in number of steps taken, anything like that? How big a change is this for the actual people as well on the other side?
Well, from an SME perspective, it's I guess we brought it down to a matter of 2 to 3 days from lead origination to loan disbursement. So it's a very quick turnaround time, and that used to take a few weeks, because we had a much more traditional approach to both client engagement and client sourcing, as well as to the credit assessment. And we realized that a lot of the SMEs actually are pretty much sole proprietors. So I think that's true across the world. So we've used our scorecards as well to help, like our scorecard capabilities, to help us to build out simple scorecard for SMEs. We obviously it helps to have their bank statements, so they've got bank statements, etc. But we've got a bank statement scraping tool that basically you take 6 months bank statements, and it helps you to understand what kind of loan you can give them. So I guess we have significantly changed the way that we think about what SMEs are and how we grant loans to them. I think given our experience in the different products we've got in terms of unsecured loans, factoring, which is working capital finance, as well as leasing, what we did is we didn't have an SME team before. We had a product-led team, we had product-led teams, and now it's really like the SME team. We've got desks in all our branches, and it's really about understanding the needs of the SMEs. They can apply through our digital channels, but if they do want to come in person and talk through things a bit more, we can do that with them. And based off their needs, SMEs typically either need cash for working capital purposes, they need to invest in some equipment, a vehicle, etc. So once you understand that, you can say, well, okay, let's base our credit decision off something a lot simpler, based on the actual needs.
You mentioned their experience. I assume in terms of like the infrastructure in place, there's a credit bureau in place. We've talked about credit cards out there. What does that landscape look like? What products are popular? Is it like the rest of the world where buy now, pay later is a hot new topic? Or what are the products that get the most traction in terms of the consumer borrowing and lending?
So in terms of, I guess, in the Mauritian market, there's so buy now, pay later hasn't taken off yet. It's something that we are seriously looking at. Because I mean, in effect, we're a buy now, pay later company anyway. So people buy like the goods that I told you about earlier, and they pay off over 24 to 48 months. Whereas I guess BNPL, as we know it, is a 3 to 4 month payment product. So we're looking at that as well. But in the Mauritian context, people have a affinity to owning their own homes here. So I guess like the traditional mortgages are still a big thing. And unsecured lending was like when we started doing unsecured lending about 5-6 years ago, and it wasn't really done at all in the market. So that's a product we've seen significant growth in. So a lot of people have got like small projects, whether it's renovation, it's having a wedding, whatever it is, and they just need a loan to help them. So we've used our scorecards, and off the back of the experience we've got on the loan performance for unsecured loans, have been able to really customize those well to, I guess, the clients that take unsecured loans. And now we've literally got a turnaround time of someone applies for an unsecured loan and we'll give them a credit decision instantly. So we have dispersed the next day, but I think the other product that's going to take off quite a lot in Mauritius is digital payments or instant payments. So the central bank has put in place like an instant payment system that's like all the financial services participants can apply to link into. And for a non-bank, it's fantastic because basically, like in our case, we've got our app, like I told you, and now we can get our customers to link their accounts to their bank accounts and effectively pay us back automatically on a monthly basis, or they can originally do it themselves on a monthly basis. But then from an unsecured lending perspective, we can just disperse instantly through to their bank account once they've applied for a loan on our mobile app. So that's, I guess, the instant payments product is taking off well, and we're launching our digital loan, unsecured loan in the next few months. So that we think that could, given the growth we've seen in our traditional, I guess, unsecured loan portfolio, we think that could be a game changer. And then look at maybe doing micro loans, look at doing BNPL as well.
We talked about some of the unique business challenges in terms of being an island nation and having kind of a small concentrated population. But obviously in this world, there's also much bigger challenges, particularly when we think of island nations around things like climate change and what that's going to mean. I see that you guys are also quite heavily involved in that space. I saw you issuing green bonds with FSD Africa and being heavily involved in broader FSG and initiatives. Do you want to talk about what you're doing in that space as well?
Yeah, so I think I guess as the senior exec group, we wanted to do something in the ESG or renewable space, like just to make a difference in the country. At that point in time, which was actually beginning of 2021, there was no framework around issuing green bonds. Because if you want to provide green financing, you effectively need to issue green bonds to be able to fund the financing that you're doing from a green perspective. So we did our business case and then put together a green bond framework in line with international best practice. And then eventually the regulator here did issue a framework around regulatory framework around green bonds. So they did that end of December last year. We applied for approval for our green bonds about a week later, and then in January this year we issued our green bonds, and that was really to be able to give Mauritians cheaper funding or financing to, in the first instance, given the type of business we've got, is use leasing, the green leasing to buy electric vehicles, to buy plug-in hybrids, solar PV is taking off in a big way in Mauritius. So to be able to install solar PV, water storage tanks, etc. So any sustainable, whether it's for an individual or for corporate, any sustainably linked project, we will finance that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I think there are now more moves around the world, but certainly in some of the bigger markets, I here in the UK go to a lot of conferences, and the talk is still a lot about how we're going to get this off the ground. So it's a gap, I think, and it's great to hear that taking big steps already in that space. Mark, you've obviously got a lot on your plate already. You've made a lot of changes in a short time. But when you think about next year, what are your plans for the CIM Group in 2023? Are there any kind of big, exciting headlines for us to be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we want to double down on our investment into Africa. So we've got I guess 4 years of track record in Kenya. So really push the business more in Kenya, as well as start looking at opportunities outside of Kenya. And then really, like I said, I think we spent a couple of the last 3 years investing a lot into digital, a lot into our analytics side of our business. So it's really around now leveraging that infrastructure and capability we've got and pushing a lot more digital products, lending products, as well as payment products, like I mentioned, whether that's instant payment or buy now, pay later into the market. So I think for us, it's a very exciting space. It's been a few years of a lot of hard work of putting the building blocks in place. And now we really want to like be even more innovative in the market and what we take to market over the next 12 to 18 months.
And if anyone listening would like to follow that, stay in touch with the story, where's a good place for them to go to see what the CIM Group is up to?
They can either have a look on our website, or they're welcome to come to Mauritius. It's a beautiful island, and come and visit. And we can
I'll put links to the website and also to some travel agencies in the show notes. But freezing here in the UK, Mauritius sounds very attractive. Some good friends and family living out there now, so definitely we'll take you up on that that idea and pop over there one day. But thank you very much for your time. It's been great catching up.
Thanks, Brendan. Great catching up with you.
And thank you all for listening. Please do look for and follow the show on your favorite podcast platform, and share the updates widely on LinkedIn, where lending nerds are found in our largest concentration. Plus, send me a connection request while you're there. This show is written and recorded by myself, Brendan LaGrange, in Brighton, England, and edited by Fina Charlson of FC Productions. Show music is by I Am Wake, and you can find show notes and written transcripts at www.howtolendmoneytostrangers.show. or just www.htlmts.show, and I'll see you again next Thursday.